I talk to a lot of medical groups, and I always say, you've got to be thinking, what does this guy know? I have two sons-in-laws who are surgeons, you know, real academic surgeons, faculty at University of Wisconsin, and they all want to know what's the mechanism, how does this work? So what I've started doing now is you're going to see data, you're going to see facts that I think will genuinely surprise you. And when you see some of it, you'll say, that can't be. Who is this guy? I'm not Dr. Oz. I know Dr. Oz well. I think he's a total charlatan. Everything I'm going to tell you is peer-reviewed, and I put this up first. I've prepared for every slide a list of the links you can put in your computer, and you can look at longitudinal studies, peer-reviewed research. This is not the ravings of an old man. This is the real stuff. How I got into this is another story that's really interesting, but we don't have time to do that now. So as a trial lawyer, I'm always looking for visual ways of showing things. So I'd like to talk about the Frail Trail and the Strong Path. And you know what the Frail Trail is. You know, when I grew up, my relatives were all in their 80s, and they were little old ladies, and they fell down all the time and broke their hips, and when they did, they never got out of bed again. So I talk about, everybody in this room is still at a point personally where you can decide whether you want to be on the Frail Trail or the Strong Path. The Frail Trail, you know, you're walking along, bent over, looking at your phone, and then you're sitting at a computer for 8 hours a day, and I've got some data on what that does to you. And then you're watching a lot of television and using your clicker. And then you start walking with a walker. I have two classmates from college who were world-class athletes. All-American lacrosse player, All-American swimmer. They're exactly my age. They both walk with walkers now. This is no joke. You have to, and there's way more of this now than there used to be because our culture is so sedentary. Wheelchair, motorized wheelchair for going around Walmarts, bedridden. Somebody over 70 who spends a week on bed rest loses half their strength. And they'll never get it back unless they pump iron, never. So that's the Frail Trail. What's interesting is until a year and a half ago, almost everybody in the medical community and everybody in the regular community thought that frailty with aging just happened. It was inevitable. It was a condition, it was a syndrome, it was something that happened as you got older, and it was inevitable. That's not true, and that way of thinking is now wrong, and the AMA has finally come around to recognize that frailty with aging, the Frail Trail, is a disease with a cure. October 2016, AMA recognized frailty is caused by a disease, and there is an alternative. There is a cure. Whenever I go to a university, and like my son's on the faculty at Madison, I ask people, do you think frailty with aging is inevitable? Oh, sure. Have you ever heard of sarcopenia? Nobody's ever heard of it. Your particular area of endeavor has got these little silos, and it's really important to know everything in a thing about this wide and about 40 million miles deep. But as far as I know, none of my friends who are in medicine have had exercise taught them in medical school. It's just not even referred to. Exercise physiology, the 5,000 or 6,000 changes that happen at a cellular level when you pump iron is simply not taught in medical school. So let's talk about the Strong Path. Pumping iron, dancing, running, having fun. My way of thinking is not about living forever. It's not about these guys in Silicon Valley that think they're going to live till they're 190. It's living your life great. It's enjoying every second that you have. I'm enjoying every day of my life just as much now at 86 as I did at 22. I can do everything as well as I could then, and that's the goal. Now, are there a lot of other benefits that come from it? Yes. I'm going to go really fast here because we're going to cover a lot of material. I don't talk this fast when I'm trying a jury case, but we're going to cover a lot of material fast, so bear with me. The strong path, stand straight, reach for the sky with the back of your head, run, bingo, skiing. Okay, everybody in this room has an insidious, virtually unknown disease. It's called sarcopenia. It starts destroying our strength at age 30. Lose maybe 1% a year. There's all kinds of different opinions about that. Accelerates in our 50s and again after 60. And Harvard Medical School just concluded that between 60 and 70, this disease, sarcopenia, takes a third of your remaining strength. And once you get over 70, you've lost a third of your strength. You will fall down. Most people do. You break a hip. And Helen did. If you have a week in bed rest, you lose a lot more strength, and you're in this downward spiral of aging. Basically, our adult life, half of our adult life is from 60 to 90. If you're 60, your mode is 90, the most likely age you'll live to, some younger, some older. But your health expectancy is only 8 years. So because you guys, you're geniuses in all areas of medicine, have given us maybe 10 to 20 extra years of life, you have not given us 10 to 20 extra fabulous years of life. So my whole teaching is, let's take these years you guys have given people and make them just as good as their years were in their 20s. Now, some people say you must have been some kind of a great athlete or something. No. I got cut from I went to a huge high school in the south side of Chicago. I got cut from every team, never did anything. But I learned this, got into this in a very interesting way. I'm not going to talk about it now, but there was a woman involved. Basically, so the years from 60 to 90 are basically almost half your adult life. And frailty, sarcopenia, most people, it lays waste to the last half of our adult life. Your doctor, my hobby is asking doctors what they think about frailty and sarcopenia. Almost none of them know anything. Zero, nada. It's far worse than you can imagine. You're medical people, you've seen these kinds of things, but it's far worse than you can imagine. The sarcopenia, I told you, leads to this downward spiral. You get into your 50s, you don't play softball anymore. If you staggered around underneath a softball, it hit you on the head. You do a little less, you take a few less risks. By the time you get in your 60s, you're doing less. When you do less, you get weaker. When you get weaker, you do less. And as you move into your 70s and 80s, there is no doubt at all that almost everybody's world constricts. And the fabulous life they led in their 20s and 30s and 40s is just flat-ass gone, okay? And, as I'll show later, frailty with aging leads to a cascade of chronic diseases. 10 different kinds of cancer, diabetes, Alzheimer's, heart disease. I'll show you data, peer-reviewed data on those diseases and frailty, and how just plain old pure D strength is the best cure for it, and I think you'll be surprised. Just a year and a half ago, the United States government took a survey of what they thought were the worst diseases, because they wanted to get Big Pharma involved, because maybe Big Pharma could come in and invent drugs that would cure these diseases. They had a list of diseases. One of the top 3 was sarcopenia, because it affects the largest number of people, everybody. There's no current therapy, they thought. There's no cure, and it ruins your life. So the FDA last year had a huge conference. I was a witness. I said, I want to be a witness. They said, well, you got to be a victim. I said, everybody's a victim. So I'm a witness. And the things that I heard there curled my hair about the lack of knowledge. Nobody in the government at that meeting where they had 1,000 people there knew any of the stuff I'm going to show you. Zero, zip, nada. Now, a friend of mine is Ezekiel Emanuel. You know him, Rahm Emanuel's brother, one of the top bioethicists in the world, Oxford, Harvard. He's at Penn, thoughtful guy, 55 years old. Last 2 winters ago, I was skiing. I found an article he'd written in Atlantic magazine. Zeke said, everybody should die at 75 because life isn't worth living from 75 to 90 or so. It just isn't worth it. And he went into great length about how you're weak and you can't do anything and you sit in a chair and watch TV. That day, I called my friend who knows him and I said, tell Zeke, I'm 84. I just skied with my 13-year-old granddaughter who's on the, keep forgetting I can't get in front of the screen there, who's on the Alta ski team. We had knee-deep powders, one of the best days of my life, and I'm 84, and you say I should have been dead for 10 years. But that's the state of science. When a truly brilliant physician with all the training in the world, a bioethicist, writes a law, you ought to read the Atlantic article, it'll curl your hair. He is saying nobody should live after 75, it's not worth it. He says pneumonia is a blessing because you just don't take the drugs and it's a fairly painless death. I'm not kidding. Okay, accurate medical advice is limited. Medical science has thought almost all the time frailty is inevitable, it just happens, and Helen gets old and weak and falls down. They've thought that. I said in October 2016, WHO recognized it with its own classification of diseases. You get all the numbers, you can get funds for different things and studies and stuff. Just last year, 2 years ago. As far as I know, this disease isn't taught in medical school. Nobody teaches frailty with aging. Nobody teaches sarcopenia. Nobody teaches the causes. Nobody teaches the cures. Not taught. So one of the most serious diseases in America, and indeed in the entire world, isn't taught at most medicals. Did any of you study that in medical school? Okay. Doctors give wrong advice that makes the disease work. Take it easy. Take it easy. Don't push yourself too hard. The secret is pushing yourself to failure. Those of you who pump iron know it's not light weights. It's okay to get warmed up that way, but it's the heaviest weights you can handle to total failure on low reps that gives you what you need to defeat sarcopenia. There's no medications, therapy, or anything yet approved for the treatment of sarcopenia. The whole entire world is facing an epidemic of strength deterioration, and the best educated people and their doctors don't know anything about it. I always say the hardest people for me to convince in the world I live in as a trial lawyer, I hate to hang out with a lot of unbelievably rich guys, 800 million, billion, couple of billion. They're the last guys that'll go to a strip mall gym and pump iron. There's something in a successful man that it is humbling to go in there with all the young guys grading, strutting around and all that stuff. They won't do it. And I could talk for days about people I've counseled and said, you're dying of sarcopenia. A year later, they're dead. They won't do what you have to do. The smartest men in the world and their doctors don't get it and don't know what to do. I don't need to do this for a living. My website, which you ought to look at, I pay for. I don't take any ads. I don't get paid any money. This is something that needs to be changed. This is a group that can make change happen. I can give you information you don't have, but it's hard for me to make the change happen because I don't have the credibility and the credentials. The cause and the cure. I could talk for 2 hours on this. Our genome today is about the same as it was 50,000 years ago. You can talk about milk sensitivity and a few little things at the margin. But basically, if a guy from 50,000 years ago walked down the street in a suit and got a haircut, he'd basically be like we are. That genome that we have, which is the same as it was 50,000 years ago, took 3,700 millions of years to develop. Millions, and you know how natural selection works. Everybody's born with mutations. Maybe you have 30 mutations. Who knows? Cosmic rays, environment, who knows? And some mutations are neutral. Some are bad. If they're bad, it means you, and to evolutionists, all natural selection means is you have more progeny. And if a mutation is bad, it gets in you die earlier, so that mutation may not get in the gene pool. If it's a good mutation, it gives you an advantage, competitive advantage in the world you're in at the time, then you'll live a little longer, have a few more kids, and it will get in the gene pool. That means that every molecule of our bodies over these tens of millions of years of evolution was designed, selected for by Darwin's natural selection to make our bodies at their absolute, very flat-ass best in a world of 24/7 intense physical activity. That world's gone. And a lot of these diseases, Dr. Lieberman at Harvard has written a book, he calls it the Mismatch Theory. Our bodies were built for this intense actively world. They would always be at their best in that world. That world is dead and gone, so our bodies are trying to compete in a world they're not matched for. It'll take millions of years for our bodies to become like people who will do well in today's world. I don't want to be around for that. Main cause is inactivity in a sedentary world. What's the cure? You know, once you know the cause, you know the cure. If the cause is inactivity, get active. What's new and different? We've all heard you got to be skinny. Cardio is important. Run, walk slowly, and all that. Now we know, and the peer-reviewed research that's in the links you can get if you want them, you know that the one thing that's correlated with success and happiness in the last half of your life is strength. Nothing but strength. Over 70, it's better to be a little heavy. You don't want to be skinny, and you know about slow twitch and fast twitch muscles, but if you want to live the life your bodies were designed for, you got to pump iron. I do cardio too, of course, but you do interval cardio where you ramp your pulse up to 170 and then let it get down to 115. And 2 years of doing that at age 84, I got my pulse under certain conditions of the height, the speed I'm going at on the height of the hill and the steepness of the hill. My pulse under those things was 130, now it's 110. People think you can't improve. And when I'm telling you these things, I'm not bragging, folks, but I'm saying every couple of weeks I break a lifetime strength record. You can keep doing it. Everybody can do it. There's nothing, you just have to do it. Is it hard? Yeah, it's hard. Is it worth it? Yeah, it's worth it. How sedentary are we? 20,000 BC, when our genes were being formed, men went 21,000 steps a day. Today it's 5,000. So they kept moving. Now they don't move at all. 40% of American women are obese today. That doesn't mean overweight, it means obese. The average American woman between 20 and 75 does not get 1 hour a year of intense physical exercise. 0. And intense is not going for a walk after dinner. Intense is not going a bike ride. Intense is where you're doing something to failure and you're getting your pulse up to a high level. Average American woman gets 0. Again, the links to this stuff are all in the material you can get if you want it. Based on current trends, Harvard recently said almost 60% of all 2-year-olds alive today will be obese at age 35. You got to start early on this. This is for your kids and your grandkids. I've got 12 grandkids and 5 great-grandkids. I've got a 62-year-old daughter, and that's the best indicator of the end will come. People watch TV more than 4 hours a day. Cardiovascular mortalities are 80% higher compared to those who only watch TV 2 hours a day. Now, I put these links in there because you're going to say, bullshit, that can't be. Everybody watches more than 2 hours a day. Yeah. When I was a kid growing up on the South Side, they hadn't invented television. My mother said at the time, I could only listen to the radio a half hour a day. My mother was German, didn't speak any English when I was a kid. You only could listen to the radio a half hour a day because boys are supposed to be outside playing. That world's gone. My next book's going to be called 19 is the New 60. But a realization is dawning. It's important that I not try to convince you that I've thought of something, but the whole world has thought of it. And the most conservative medical scientists in the world are now starting to get it. Here's Harvard. Exercise is a powerful preventive and an antidote to disability. I mean, those are strong words. You don't expect those from a conservative medical institution. Countless studies have correlated physical activity with better health and a longer life. Countless studies, and there are. There's zillions of them. They've taken all these longitudinal studies and compared them, and they all come out the same. If exercise could be bottled, it would be the most prescribed medicine. And that's Harvard. These people, as I keep saying, they're not into overstatement. If anything, they've been trained by my legal profession that you don't overstate things, indeed you understate them. Exercise has a bigger impact on disease risk than just about any other remedy. I'm going to show you that exercise dramatically reduces the chances of getting or dying from 35 different diseases. 35. UK Academy of Medical Colleges. Physical activity is a miracle cure. And it is, it's a miracle cure. Center for Disease Control. Physical activity is the closest thing we have to a wonder drug. You know, how many physicians do you know that state that strongly to their patients, this is a wonder drug and it'll change your life? In my book, I picked out a group of people that weren't doing all that well in life. And I talked them into getting on the strong path. What has done to their lives is amazing. People who were worried about being fired by big pharma are now heads of European operations. Strength changes everything. It changes your mind. You think differently. You feel better about yourself because remember natural selection. Every function of our body is designed to do better under intense physical activity. It's a wonder drug, okay? Time magazine, a silver bullet. It actually slows the aging of our cells. I'm not going to talk a lot about mechanisms, just enough so you can see how fascinating the study of these mechanisms is. One of our authors is Dr. Marnie Bopart, who's a cellular molecular scientist at Beckman Institute, University of Illinois. And she says when you pump iron, there are thousands and thousands of changes going on in your cells, and we have no idea what they're for, but the argument runs they're probably for some good purpose. We just haven't figured out yet why. If there were a drug that could do for human health this is a report on exercise, it'd be the most valuable pharmaceutical ever developed. These are strong words. How does it work, these miracles? I never knew until I started studying this. I got into this because about 20 years ago, my buddies were falling by the wayside, and I just got curious, and I learned you could get on Medline, and you use a computer, and you can find anything on there. And so I got interested. And I didn't know that the muscle is an endocrine organ. It actually secretes proteins and other substances that are necessary for our bodies to operate the way they should operate. It's an organ. It's like a kidney or a heart or anything. The muscle is not just something, to look. When I grew up, Charles Atlas was a big deal. You want to look good on the beach in case somebody kicks sand in your face, Okay, when you contract our muscles, like that, they secrete little proteins and peptides that are called myokines. That's, I know more than that, but just for now, I'm just giving you an idea so that there is science behind this. I want you to have confidence in that. Okay, when myokines get in our bloodstream, cells regenerate and rejuvenate. We grow stronger, but our cells grow younger. Believe it or not, it sounds almost like magic. These switching factors affect muscles, ligaments, bone, liver, nervous system, GI tract, and all organ systems. That's why there's 35 different chronic diseases that are benefited by pumping iron. It's not got to do with vanity. It's got to do with, you know, living your life the way you were designed to live it. They also affect inflammatory. Okay, slow twitch, fast twitch. They release different kinds of myokines. Today, most people do light weights, high reps. That's only gets your slow twitch. That's 40% roughly of your muscles. Fast twitch is 60%. Slow twitch is endurance. So if you're doing light weights and walking slowly and having a walk after dinner, you're getting your slow twitch, but your fast twitch, your motor units, I say they die. They forget how to operate. And as you move into your 60s, you don't have any fast twitch muscles. Fast twitch muscles are the ones you need to hit a golf ball, hit a tennis ball, sprint, ski, not fall down. You know, I never thought when I was, you know, like most of us here, most men here, when I was, you know, 39 or 40, I thought I was God's gift. You know? You know what I mean. You ladies here know exactly what I mean. But you don't want to fall down. So I've got a whole bunch of exercises that I figured out how to strengthen the muscles to keep you from falling down. It'd take too long to cover all that right now. No other mechanism, nothing, no drug, nothing. And this is a finding of peer-reviewed research causes such a strong positive response through the entire body as pumping iron, exercise. There's a new age dawning. Almost every week we find new stuff. And I'm confident that 5 years from now we'll learn that of these thousands of changes that are taking place at a cellular level, maybe even a molecular level in your body when you pump iron. We'll know why these were chosen by evolution to make us function better. But look at this. Physical exercise methylates your DNA, methylates your genes. Methylating them, which is, you know, it's just an organic molecule. Methylating your genes makes them perform their functions in the best way possible under the circumstances. Sometimes you want to shut down what a gene is expressing. Sometimes you want to trigger it. But the methylation of genes, which almost nobody's heard about, does that and makes your body operate at a DNA level better. This leads to increased expression of tumor suppression genes and decreased expression of oncogenes. And exercise strongly induces the tumor suppressor gene by influencing epigenetic modifications to the cancer cell's genome. Epigenetic, of course, I never used to believe you could change I was just a regular guy. I was an engineer. I thought, you know, you're stuck with the gene, the genome you have, but these epigenetic changes can influence the way the genes you have operate. And most people never even thought about that. Okay, exercise data on cancer. Mortality rates are 50% higher in people with low muscular strength. 50%. That's a whole bunch. If you could find a drug, if my friends from Bayer here could invent a drug that you could take that would do that, people like us would pay 50 grand a year to take that drug. We would, everybody would. Tumor suppressor genes, much more active in those who exercise vigorously. Colon cancer death reduced by 31% if you exercise. Breast cancer, from 30 to 80%. There's reliable, good studies that show that death from breast cancer is reduced by 80% in women who pump iron. And women, even Alzheimer's, women in the top 10% of fitness in the world are 90% less likely to get Alzheimer's than women in the middle quartile of fitness. I mean, it isn't worth it. Lung cancer risk reduced by 23%. Prostate patients reduces chance of death by cancer by 61% compared to people who aren't active and all cause death by 46%. Other diseases, the four diseases, diabetes, heart disease, Alzheimer's, and osteoporosis. Strength training is, this slide has links that will show that strength training is absolutely correlated with less chance of getting those diseases and a better chance of recovery if you do get it. It's as simple sometimes that, you know what the radiation and chemistry does to you when you have to be treated for cancer. It's hard to hold up under those loads. But people who are physically strong, they do better in the treatment phase than people who aren't. Look at this. Exercise is this is a quote from Harvard Medical School. Exercise is the primary prevention against 35 chronic conditions. Look at that. When I saw that, I was floored. That means that something is going on when we exercise that is far more primitive and far more sort of evolutionary based. Our bodies just plain flat ass do better when we're doing what natural selection designed our bodies to do. Muscle strength is a predictor of all-cause mortality. And this phrase, apparently healthy population, I've learned that you got to, when you quote a study, you got to use the right language. And apparently healthy people aren't chosen specifically for different reasons. But muscle strength is a predictor of all-cause mortality. The stronger you are, the better your mortality is. And we now say that strength is the missing measure of health and happiness. Not being skinny, not going for a nice walk after dinner, although I say cardio is fine. I just say you want to do interval cardio, go out to a track, sprint like crazy for 60 yards. Your pulse should be around 160 if you sprint hard. Walk until it gets down to 90, which shouldn't take too long if you're in good shape. Sprint like crazy for another 60 yards until your pulse gets up. And it's this is pretty well known now in the cardiac business, that this yo-yoing of your heart rate is way better for you than just this going out on a nice walk and got your pulse at 112, okay? Oh, this is 38 studies involving 2 million people. They went through they reached these conclusions by drilling down and drilling down and drilling down on this, okay? And again, if any questions anybody has, I'll take. Get hold of Mark, and he has our list of all of the links that support all these statements I've made to you. Some of them are amazing statements, but they're all supported not by Cosmopolitan magazine studies, but by and I know because I have to fight against goofy scientists who dream up that practically any product in the world can cause cancer. So I'm familiar with there's peer-reviewed studies and there's peer-reviewed studies. And a lot of peer-reviewed studies can never be reproduced because people picked and chose and do things. The stuff I've picked, we had Dr. Bopart, a young woman, she's 45 and a former fighter pilot and all that kind of stuff. But we had her go through it to at least give us some. I don't want to pass judgment on anything medical. I'm not a medical guy, I'm an engineer and a lawyer. But I've done all this research myself and dug it out and looked at it and argued with people for 15 years. And my wife finally said, why don't you write a book? So I did. Thanks for your attention.